get back to you? No, he did not. Not yet. I would assume he will in the morning. Okay, good. Thanks. I just thought I'd check to see if I missed something. I've been busy up here. Okay, I'll let you know. Thank you. But again, maybe pull the trigger immediately. Yeah, as soon as I know, like if you think it comes in, you can pull the trigger right then. Just let me know and I'll call it. That fast to start signing papers. That fast. Yeah. Yeah, but you have to have machines for them to put it up. So we have to rent the wills. Yes, we gotta have two for this one. No, he's a friend that has this. He has a rental guy. Yep. Tight. Very close.
Probably all the way up.
All right, good evening. We're going to get started. We're just a couple minutes after 7, so we'd like to begin. If you'd like to stand with us, we're going to sing Jesus is Coming Again. Jim? Marvelous message we bring, glorious carol we sing, wonderful word of the King. Jesus is coming again, coming again, coming again. Maybe morning, maybe noon, maybe evening, and maybe soon. Coming again, coming again. Oh, what a wonderful day it will be. Jesus is coming again. Forest and flower exclaim, mountain and meadow the same, all earth and heaven proclaim, Jesus is coming again, coming again, coming again. Maybe morning, maybe noon, maybe evening, and maybe soon. Coming again, coming again. Oh, what a wonderful day it will be. Jesus is coming again. On the last, standing before him at last. Trials and troubles all past. Crowns at his feet we will cast. Jesus is coming again, coming again, coming again. Maybe morning, maybe noon, maybe evening, and maybe soon. Coming again, coming again. Oh, what a wonderful day it will be. Jesus is coming again. Amen. We look forward to that. Got a message on our Sunday morning series. I'm going to talk a little about when he comes back. This next song, you might have heard it. It's been a very long time. It's called Above and Beyond My Needs. All I ever wanted was someone to care for me, someone to always be there for me, right through the good and the bad. Spent a long time hoping that just one time a portion of love I would find, and you came along, gave me so much more. Above and beyond my needs, your love has carried me when I was not strong enough to make it on my own. Your love has calmed my fears, and I know you're always near, and only a love so strong could come from above and beyond. Just a cup of water was all that I needed. All alone in my darkness I pleaded for someone to answer my call. And your love washed away all the pain. The moment I called out your name, you filled up my heart, and I won't be the same. No. Above and beyond my needs, your love has carried me when I was not strong enough to make it on my own. And your love has calmed my fears, and I know you're always near. And only your love so strong could come from above and beyond. Only a love so strong could come from above and beyond. Amen. Well, this is the end of our worship service and song. As we close down, I know we have Kids Club this evening. Just a quick reminder, we won't probably have Kids Club next Wednesday night. So unless somebody steps up and takes that on, we're going to have a little different Wednesday. But we'll dismiss them, and you can grab your Bibles and turn to Genesis 13. All right, we've got a great turnout on a Wednesday night. Good to see you all here. Grab your Bibles. Genesis chapter 13 from our series, Why Am I Fighting? As you turn there, I'd like to introduce or just kind of remind you of a couple things coming up that you might be interested in. First of all is the Spiritual Leadership Conference. And my alma mater, the college I went to, they put on every year a kind of ministry, encouragement, and training opportunity. And we're going to be headed down that way. That's September 22nd through the 25th. If you're interested in that, will you just let me know? Right now, we don't need to really talk about price or any of those kind of things. Just if you're interested, we would like to know. There's going to be a number of sessions. I'll put this in the back. You can kind of look through it, or you can look up for Spiritual Leadership Conference. I believe it's like SLC at wcbc.edu, but it's pretty easy. Just type in Lancaster Baptist Spiritual Leadership Conference. I've been to a couple of those. I haven't been to one since I was in Bible college, but it was mandatory when we were students. I don't remember really enjoying it. They're getting teachers together from across the country on a number of subjects, from worldview to how to teach children and a variety of other ministry capacities that people serve in. And so I think it would be a great encouragement to you. There's going to be a lot of preaching besides all of the lessons. It's just a great weekend. That's the 22nd through the 25th. If you're interested in that, definitely want to see me in the next week or so, all right? I know that's a little late notice, but we're really just now getting on board with that. Also, provided by Grace Community Church in Mariposa here, a gentleman reached out to me. There's a marriage, couples dinner and marriage conference going on in the coming weekend. I think it's a similar time, the week right before this, somewhere around the 19th or so. They're going to be having at Grace Church, to have a special speaker come in who I've actually talked to at length on a video call. I really enjoy him, from a like-minded church, and just has a burden for married couples. So I want to encourage you, if you know anybody that would love just to brush up, or if your marriage is struggling, or if your wife tells you there's something wrong with your marriage, maybe this will be for you. All right, so if you're interested, I have a little more information. They sent me 3 pages, but only one came through on the email. So I sent them another email and just said, hey, you guys are going to have to send me the rest of this thing because I don't have dates or anything. But it's going to be an event for a weekend. It'll be a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And really, I know, we're really bent on church attendance, and a lot of you folks would be here on typical Sunday morning. But if you're in the middle of that marriage opportunity, there's going to be their Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday, what's going to happen is the Sunday event is actually, there's going to be something going on at Grace, but also something that we can do here as well for couples. So if you're interested in that, pre-registration is required, and I give you more information, or you can get that at gracechurchmariposa.com. So they've invited us, and I really appreciate their spirit and the folks that they're bringing out to put that on, and we just want to encourage them. So if you're interested, you can do that. All right, let's see. Anything else? Yoan's back there. Yoan, this is his last day with us. He's leaving after church tonight.
I know, everybody say, oh, Yelen's been working hard and doing a great job around church. He's been our intern all year, and he's getting ready to go off to college. I'd like to take a chance at the end of prayer tonight to really lay our hands on him and pray that the Lord be with him as he goes off to college, and we take temptations. So there'll be a lot of attacks on faith, and he's got an opportunity to be a great light. And so I want to pray for him tonight, and we'll remember that. Let's see, anything else? Oh, the 24th at 5 p.m. That is Saturday nights from now. We are going to get together to send Laney off as well. We're going to have some barbecue pork, and we're going to be out here in the courtyard. And then just invite everybody over to have some good food and get an opportunity to send her off. So we're putting that on. And if you'd like to come, please RSVP Amy so that we can continue to prepare the meals and get everything ready. That would be really helpful to us. If you don't RSVP and you just come, we're not going to kick you out or anything. But it's there, we might have to give you Johnny's sandwich or something, if you come late. So we want to invite you to that. Remember, next Wednesday night, I'm going to be gone. Wednesday night's going to look a little different. We've been on a video series on our Sunday evening. And so this Sunday night, we're going to have the second part of the Created in His Image video series. And then the third one, which would usually be on a Sunday night, that's going to be on Wednesday night. And so if you come in, we're going to have a short video, which is about 22 to 25 minutes long. And then immediately following that, there will be prayer. But I will not be here. So for the worship team, if you guys want to reach out and grab Josh, that's great. If not, just make sure you guys are prepared for that. You can take requests. We're getting that all organized. But you can be here next Wednesday, but I won't. So I just want to pray that you'll be there and be a blessing. All right, anything else I should be announcing? Did I miss anything? I just announced everything coming up for the next year, all right? So don't worry about it. Genesis 13:4, why am I fighting? We're going to talk about Abraham resolving conflict. I have been reading through the Bible and just covering chapter by chapter, looking for, just scouring it for fights and conflicts and difficult times that we might address. So I want to grab Genesis chapter 13 and verse number 4. The second conflict as I see it in the Bible, there's a couple things. You'll notice that I did skip one. I skipped Pharaoh and Abraham, and the reason I did is because there's really, if we don't have a resolution or if we don't get the whole story, if we don't get both sides, it's kind of challenging for us to study it. So I'm choosing ones where we have a resolution, and Pharaoh just telling Abraham, hey, you shouldn't have lied to me, get out. That's not really helpful to us necessarily today. So we're going to go open this up, Genesis chapter 13. Let's read a few verses together, and we're going to answer the question again, why am I fighting? And this is a very different conflict than we've seen before, so hopefully it'll be a blessing to you. Verse number 3, we'll begin there. And he went on his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, even to Bethel and Ai. And unto the place of the altar, verse number 4, which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. So he's returning from Egypt after his whole, Sarah's my sister debacle. And he's been kicked out of Egypt, goes out with great possessions. He goes back to where he began, back to where he built the altar in Bethel and Ai, and he begins to call in the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abraham said to Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me, and if thou wilt take the left hand, I will go to the right, and if thou wilt depart to the right hand, I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other. And Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain. And he pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said to Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. Dear Heavenly Father, as we open the Word tonight, and as we consider the conflicts that arise between believers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, friends and family, church members, and leadership and in business and at work, I pray, Lord, you give us the tools to live peaceably with all men, and we ask these things, and that they would come from your Word. Amen. All right. We spoke of one fight already, and I want to make a clear distinction. Big problem there's a big difference between these two. Cain's fight was never resolved. We learned a lot about inner conflict and our own problems, and the problems that happen spiritually between us and God, and how that affects other people. Cain ultimately, his conflict ended in a very bad decision that isolated him from the world. We have a very different situation here. This conflict here is between Abraham and Lot. This conflict, on the other hand, is between a godly person and an ungodly person, but the godly person knows about the conflict and he takes the initiative to solve the problem. And therein lies, I believe, the stark difference. Because of that, while last week we learned a great deal about human flaws and the challenges that affect relationships, this week we can learn about the Christian principles for resolving conflict, and we can learn those from Abraham. We're going to see some of the issues that arise, and I'm going to ask you to get involved. So let's begin first with Abraham resolving conflict. Let's begin right now by just asking, what is the problem? Jealousy? Where does the fight arise? Between the herdsmen. Now, this is an interesting challenge because one of the things that I think is fascinating about this particular problem is that the strife is in the ranks and not in the leaders, but the problem is solved among the leadership. I think that's really valuable information as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment. What was the main conflict? The herdsmen arose. They were fighting over what? Resources? They're fighting over resources. They each of them grazing in the same area. Is that what we would assume happened? Now, this problem that happens down in the ranks among the herdsmen, there's really no inclination of it that we get previous to this in the leadership. But Abraham becomes aware of the conflict. And I want to just take a few moments as we read what he did. It says, Abraham said to Lot, let there be no strife between us, between thee and me, between my herdsmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. So what does Abraham recognize right now? What does he recognize when he hears about the fight and the conflict? Well, when you listen to his language, what is he honing in on? What's that? Trying to keep peace?
You have as much right to this as I do.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? That they're brothers? That the conflict, how about this too? Here's something I saw. That the conflict down low could become a conflict up higher. Did he see that? He said, I don't want there to be any fights between me and you. So he recognized that this problem down below could surface in the higher ranks. Maybe even it already had, and he's kind of been seeing it. Maybe he sensed the frustration and the angst. You think that's a possibility in this situation from Lot? Now, who is Lot to Abraham? He's a nephew, right? Adopted son. Abraham has no children as of yet, right? So he basically is like his only child. And you could see the fatherly behavior that we're going to get toward him right away. As we begin into this story, I'll just take a few moments to consider the things that people fight over. I think it's a great case study in how to resolve conflicts, especially resolve them before they get out of control. Abraham and Cain, we can draw a stark difference between them. Cain let the bitterness and the frustration and the fight fester totally on one side. But Abraham addresses the conflict before it ever even becomes a fight. Have you noticed that? I'll just say right now, we're going to learn one thing from Abraham. We have got to be proactive about the resolution of conflict between one another. And I've found this so many times. I would much rather somebody that's been bothered tell me, right, that they have a problem than to let that problem fester to the point, right, where they're just going to explode. How many times have you seen that, where it seems like you're having a nice day and all of a sudden somebody just blows up and you don't even know what happened? You don't know where that's coming from. So Abraham is very wise in this situation. I was reading about a story in Sacramento, California, and a man had hit his wife with a frozen squirrel. He was jailed on suspicion of spousal abuse. The police said Monday that KOK Safan, 26, had been arguing with his wife early Monday morning when he walked into the kitchen and took several frozen squirrels from the freezer. The police spokesman said that her husband allegedly swung and struck her in the head with at least one of the squirrels, and she fell against the table, though, and then received a gash over an inch, right, on her eye. So this man was subsequently carried to jail. And as I read that story and how ridiculous that fight is, I mean, when's the last time you heard of somebody convicted for hitting somebody with a squirrel, right? I mean, it's a good story. But we have a problem, don't we? And you think about, I think about the ridiculous way that this anger manifested. I bet they weren't resolving conflict in their marriage. It's probably not working for them. And now we got other people involved. And we got to love that Abraham, he sees the conflict. He loves his son. He takes the necessary steps to resolve it. So what are the steps that Abraham takes? What can we learn from his fight? Number one, I want you to notice that Abraham valued and he saw the importance of unity. He saw the importance of unity. Some interesting phrases here we're going to read. John Helen on this, he said, we are brothers. But look what it says here before we get down to brothers. Look what as he's talking to him, he said, Abraham in verse number 8, we'll go to verse number 8, let there be no strife. I like that. That's kind of interesting because he could have said, let's not fight, or let's not have a fight. But what did he actually say? Let's not have not any strife between us. So Abraham's not content to just solve this problem. He wants to make sure that in the future there's nothing that they're fighting about. That's probably a good lesson for Christians. Don't let anything fester, right? We don't want any fights. The goal is not just to have a few things we fight about and maybe we'll have a few things we agree on. He said, let there be no strife between us. And, he says right here, recognizing the problem between me and you, between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. But I want you to notice verse number 7, something interesting. The Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land. I thought about this conversation that he was having. Why would they put that in the Bible? Abraham and Lot are having this struggle and they're fighting over land. And right before Abraham says, let's not fight, it says that the Canaanite and the Perizzite were still in the land. What do you think? Why do you think God would have said something like that? You got any ideas? Other people around, right? What else do we know about this? They are strangers, right? They're other people, but also they're family, and they're in a strange land where they don't even have property, right? And so what do you think happens when they begin to fight among themselves? I mean, we're going to be talking about problems, right? If we start striving, we start fighting, we start weakening ourselves, we start looking like bait, right? Remember what Jacob said when his sons attacked Shechem? He said, you have made me to stink. You have made me to stink in the nostrils of the people of this land. What did he mean? The way that they were behaving was going to be seen by others. That's one, possibly even, I thought about this, how important is it that they remain strong and united? You know, in just a few chapters, 5 kings are going to come over. They're going to take over a bunch of cities and haul everybody off. How important is it that there's no fights. And so this is one of those first principles, the importance of unity. I think this speaks right to the church, right to the family, and anyone who is living in the world as a Christian. It's so important, Christians, that we are not always fighting, or that there's not fights between us. Because guess who's still around? In the world. And they're watching us. The importance of unity, he says, let there be no strife. The recognition here, number one, is that he did not want one fight between him and Lot. They wanted to put on a united front, not just on the outside, right? Not just a look, not just a facade, but he wanted to be united with Lot. No divisions, because there were other people around. I think that's a great, I want to say, challenge to the church. Shouldn't the church be united? Let there be no strife, no fights among us. By the way, it did not say let there be no disagreements. That's not there. Let there be no differences of opinions. None of that. What does he say? Let there be no what? Strife. So the Christian takes a step from disagreeing with another Christian to fighting with a Christian, to having an argument in church, to having a heated debate in front of people, to having an open problem in front of the world. That's when we've stepped in, right, to the realm of disunity. Obviously, everybody in this room is united around Jesus Christ, but it's possible to divide us by fighting. And so we want to be careful about that. It's important. He says, don't let any strife be between us. Mark 9:50 says this, salt is good, but if the salt has lost its saltiness, wherewith will you season it? Have salt in yourselves, have peace with one another. A lot of people say, be the salt of the earth, and what they mean is to be different than the earth, to add flavor to the earth. Maybe they even mean to be kind of combative with worldly ideas. But the scriptures tell us, when he says, have salt in yourselves, you're supposed to have what? Peace with one another. Peace. This is so important that even, let's bring it home to like a very, very important aspect of our lives. Even in marriage, the Bible says, if you're married to an unbeliever and they decide to leave you, you're not supposed to fight with them, even though you believe marriage is sacred, because God has called us unto what? Unto peace. And so the challenge is this. All Christians are supposed to be seen as peaceful people, not as people striving and fighting and causing issues in the world. I wonder if that is our image, but that's the one we're called to. Romans 14:19, if you want to turn there, you can turn there with us. As he talks about the goal of the Christian, you know, Romans, once again, a very powerful part of Christianity. Many of us read it over and over, probably one of the most theologically deep books in the Bible. It says, let us therefore follow after things which make for peace, and the things wherewith one may edify another. And Abraham was right. You could see he follows after peace, because when he sees a problem down here that might become a problem in his family, he addresses it right now. Right now, he saw it. You could tell him, and notice how he's seeking peace by his attitude. We'll talk about it in a moment. And Mark 3:25, just to hit the nail on the head, says, a house divided against itself, it cannot stand. And so that's what Jesus said. His own words are, you cannot fight and stand. And here they are. They're a house. They're brethren. They're in the middle of they're strangers in a strange land. Abraham did not own any property. Lot did not own any property. They had vast riches. And as we know, altogether, them and their friends, they had like 300 people that could fight, total. And it was no joke that Abraham and Lot, brothers in this land, would look weak. You know, I think sometimes as Christians, we lead with weakness, and I'm not sure that's always the best method. And unity is a sign of strength in a family. It's a sign of strength in a church. And Satan and the world, they can smell it, right? They can smell when a church has problems. So we need to be really important, just very careful about this. I want you to notice, number 2, the importance of perspective in conflict. The importance of perspective. So we know that unity is important. You're supposed to follow it. No strife. We are brothers. Other people are here. Number 2, the importance of perspective. I want to show you what happened. One of the things that I love about this story is it really kind of throws identity politics out of the window, or it doesn't really bode well for people who follow blindly without consideration. Here, Abraham and Lot love each other, but their employees are fighting as if it's a competition. Is that interesting to you? That the employees have raised flags. I'm Lot's servant. We're Abraham's. We're the mighty Lots. We're the mighty Abraham. They are fighting. And Abraham and Lot are together. How important is it, let's say, in a marriage, that we don't allow fights with the kids to show disunity or to reach into disunity in the husband and wife? Right? Or we don't allow worldly fights or fights in politics to divide Christians by strife. I'm not saying, obviously there is going to be dividing. Truth is going to divide us. And we're going to talk about the kind of division that God likes. Abraham did not say, let's hang out together a lot forever. Let's not change anything. He said, there needs to be a separation, but we haven't got there yet. I want you to notice number two, perspective. The importance of perspective in a fight. Here are Lot and Abraham, great men in a wide land. What we're going to learn in just a moment is there was not a resource issue. Actually, right? They made a resource issue because they didn't want to spread out. Look what Abraham does. Watch what he does for Lot. He's trying to solve his problem. He addresses it with words. He's not accusing Lot. He's got a heart. He's got the right kind of attitude. And, God help me to have this and us to have this as we address one another. And I've failed here a lot, but I think there's a good principle here. He says, and it says, is not, in verse number 9, he says this, is not the whole land before thee? Is not the whole land, look at number 9, is not the whole land. Look at number 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes, and behold, all the plain of Jordan. So what did he do? He takes Lot to this plateau in Bethel, right? And he says, look out. And he says, now look out over this big old land. Guess what there was? There was plenty of room for everybody. Plenty of room for everybody. What can we learn from this passage that's very important? A lot of times we fight over things as if there's not enough to go around. But that really wasn't the problem, was it? Turns out where Abraham is not even as good as where Lot is going to end up. But they're fighting over it because they're all up in each other's business. And I was just thinking about this. Abraham helps Lot to see that we are fighting, our herdsmen are fighting over this land as if it's all there is. Look out here. You can have whatever you want. How often have you ever seen a little kid and here's a nursery full of toys? We see this. Amy will tell you. She does nursery all the time. And I had lots of kids, and I have kids, and my house is so full of toys. So full of toys, I want to move out. That's how bad it is. I mean, we have toys coming out our ears. My kids had so many toys growing up, they didn't even know what to do with them. And now, they could sit on, I'll tell you what happened. I'd watch a toy sit on the shelf and rot, basically, for 10 years. But if a brother or a sister pulled that toy out and tried to play with it, you want to guess what the sibling did? I want that one. What do you mean you want that one? We'll be in a nursery, all these kids playing around, some kid will pick up a toy and start playing with it, and all the other kids look over and they're like, that should be mine. And you're saying, well, I'm not a child. Yeah, well, aren't we though? I mean, how often do we look across the aisle or look at the people next to us or around us and say, I want that? You know one of the things so fascinating to me about ministry is how often somebody wants to do a ministry that's already being done and not do a ministry that nobody's doing. It's wild to me. Wild to me. Like there's so many things that our church could do. I have no time to do them. There's a ton of ways that people could serve. But it's like, you know what though? I like your job. That's what I hear the most, I had one guy tell me, he said, if I can't be a deacon or pastor, I don't know what I can do in this church. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to look at the church. But if that's all you could see, like we could all squabble about who's going to be the preacher. We could do that. We could all squabble about, the taking over a class that's already been built. Or how about the million things that are not being done? How about soul winning or door knocking or discipleship or the media ministry and all the hours that that just a handful of people put in just pulling their hair out. How many places are there where people can minister, where they could teach, where they could grow, where nothing's happening? I think it's just so natural, though, for all of us. We just think whatever we're doing, that's all there is, or whatever we've seen. We have no imagination. I read this. Luke Roberts said it this way: conflict is good in the negotiation process. It is the clash of two ideas, which then, all being well, produce a third idea. And I think that's true. Like a lot of times, if we would allow like conflict to make us, instead of just squabbling, look up a little bit, use a little creativity to solve a lot of problems. You know, so many of my fights as a young man, I just look at as so silly. Like it's just fighting about something that's just so narrow, my perspective. My sight was so narrow, what I wanted, and there's just so much in the world to do. And yet, here they are fighting. Like the whole land is before you. Abraham gives Lot perspective. And that was one of the great solutions to their conflict. So we have the importance of unity, the importance of perspective to solve conflicts. Number 3, the importance of boundaries. The importance of boundaries. Lot and Abraham are such an incredible example of how families fight, like extended families, moms and daughters, son-in-laws and mother-in-laws. And all. You know what happens with man, I tell you this, there are books, there is so much information about this. You know what we have a problem with a lot of time in families? Boundaries. How often are we so close and so much in each other's business, right? Here's a whole land. But Abraham and Lot did not, at this point, they had not had the desire to separate, just give a little distance. He was like, it's not like they didn't have any land. It's like, hey, look, if you could just go over there a little, just move over a couple of miles, and we got a couple million acres here. There's lots of room. And we could visit each other on the weekends. You know, maybe we don't have to live in the same house. You know, and again, we know this about these Middle Eastern cultures, right? Here you have, a father and the sons and the son-in-laws and the cousins and the servants and all of their kids are all living in the same little commune, right, or the same little pile of tents, and they're up in each other's business, and that was fine. But what's the problem with Lot here? Lot and Abraham both are rich. They both have the means to sustain themselves, and so they're not able to fit in a small area. They're stepping on each other's boundaries. Here's the problem with conflict that I see. Lot and Abraham did not hate each other, but they had given their servants jobs that conflicted. They were both demanded that their herds get fed, right? But they had too many herds to feed in the same area. So what had they done? Even without fighting, they had both expected something from their herdsmen that they couldn't do. How often in a family do kids fight because parents both have expectations of conflict? Right? How often do we fight in a church or in a job situation? We have two different bosses with different ideals, and they both are telling the people beneath them to do something that's not possible. And in this way, we see parents and grandparents and kids and friends, right? And expectations we place on one another to get all mixed up. Here's what I love about this. Abraham says, look, we're not going to fight unless we set some boundaries. So you need to pick somewhere, and I'm going to pick somewhere, and that will be yours, and this will be mine. Go ahead, Charlie.
Isn't Lot kind of the greedy one?
You could say that. I've heard that before.
He's looking at all this beautiful land. Well, I'll take this.
Yeah, sure. He certainly, yeah, it seems like that. I've heard a lot of messages that way, and there's probably a lot of truth to that, but the reason that I don't like to bring that up too much is because we don't want to create conflict, we want to resolve it. But you're right, Lot does seem like he wants the best, right? But here's the real point. Lot could have had the best. He was his son, basically. He could have anything he wanted. So why are they fighting? Boundaries. There were no clear boundaries between the people. There was no, this is Abraham's and this is Lot's. And I think that's very important. And however you want to argue about it, we're noticing that they're close, but they are keeping separate herds. So they're running two different herds on the same land. It's a problem. A lot of conflict arises from a lack of boundaries. And I believe, especially in the United States today, why do we have so many fights, do I think, compared to other cultures? Why do we have so many fights between fathers and sons, or daughters and mothers, or families and in-laws? Why do you think that happens? I believe one of the reasons is we are rich. We are rich. This is not a problem in other cultures because only one guy's got money and everybody else is starving to death unless he feeds them. So he's the boss and we all get underneath him. But what happens when you get two autonomous people, or maybe 4 jobs, and you got a couple that is making a lot of money, another couple's making a lot of money, and you know what starts happening? They start telling you how to spend your money. Start telling you how to live your life, and you don't like it. Why don't I take a page from Abraham and Lot's book and create some boundaries? Create some boundaries between, I think a lot of times we see this, as parents get older, sometimes kids step into their parents' life, right? And they break those boundaries. Sometimes as children grow, parents step into their kids' lives and they break boundaries, right? It's a real challenge. And why are we having this problem? It feels unique to our culture. I believe it's because we are wealthy. Here's what it says right here. Why do they have this problem? It says, Lot also went with Abraham, and he had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. And so it's not that there wasn't enough land, there wasn't enough land for them to be that close, right? Can we agree on that? That's the importance of boundaries. So we have the importance of unity. Abraham takes the initiative. We have the importance of perspective. We've got to be looking at the world like, we fight over things. Sometimes there's plenty. There's plenty of, I've seen this a lot. Real estate. You ever seen somebody buy a house and somebody else is mad because they want to buy a house? Tell me there's not a lot of land around here. Go buy some other place, right? Or the importance, lastly and finally, of faith. The importance of faith. I believe that we learn something essential from Abraham. Abraham is able to resolve this conflict because he trusts in God. Do you know why a lot of people cannot resolve conflict? Because they do not trust that God is in control. Look what he says to Lot. And just consider the faith. Has God given Abraham the land of Canaan? He has, right? Well, what if Lot had chosen Canaan and made Abraham go and pitch his tent towards Sodom? How miserable would he have been as a godly man, forced to tolerate that wickedness? Here's Abraham, God's given him all the land, and now he's got this adopted son, and he's having a conflict, and he wonders, will my family ever grow up to inherit this land? Did he ask those questions? I don't know, but I have some important realities here. Abraham recognized that God was going to take care of him. And we see this right away. He says, you pick which way you're going to go, and I'll go the other way. When I talk about the importance of faith says that I'm able to be humble and condescend. Now, we know that Abraham had every right to take the best land for himself. You said Lot was greedy. It's probably true. Abraham, on the flip side, had the right to be greedy, right? I mean, he owned this God. He promises to Lot. He's not even his son. But Abraham says, you take what you want, and I'll take whatever's left. How much humility, how much grace does it take to say something like that? Right? It's powerful. And a lot of times when I'm in the midst of a heated debate, I want to win. When I'm fighting or in a conflict, I want my way. How are we ever going to resolve any conflict if we don't have an attitude like Abraham that says, you know what? I am willing to let you take the first step. You pick what you think is best, and I'll take whatever's left. I remember this. I have a story years ago. Johnny actually was with Bill Green. You remember Bill Green killed all those wild boars? Remember that? So they had trapped and killed a bunch of wild boars in a depredation situation. And Johnny calls me because we're back in those days. We're eating beans and rice and sometimes chicken on sale, right? He says, "Hey, we got this pig, man. There's a bunch of pigs out here. If you guys come down here, we're gonna get you one." Okay. Now, again, this has nothing to do with my godliness, but it taught me a lesson. So we go running down there. We are pumped, man. Pork and these big old, sometimes pigs can really stink. These are wild boars, right? And there were a handful of them, and I was the last one there, and I got to pick last. And so what happened was, and if you know anything about wild pigs, you'll know that I was picked last. Guess which one I got? the smallest boar. I got the youngest one. So there were these big, and some were like, oh man, that one looks good. I'll take that one. Big old boar. You want to know what I know about big boars? Dude, they're so ripe, you know. And the boar taint was so strong. And we got this little pig, and I remember being bummed, like, oh man, you know, we really needed that pork, and everybody got the big pigs, you know. And I'm not kidding. Most people were just like throwing that stuff away. It stunk so bad. And everybody's like, man, this tastes terrible. We're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. This is awesome. I just happen to have like a little one. And here, I'm going to say this right now. That was not because I was godly. It was just because I was late. Okay, so don't give me any credit. But here's a reality. Just because you don't pick first doesn't mean God doesn't have you, right? And Abraham was willing to let Lot be number one, and he had everything he needed. He said, you take whatever you want. God has made the promise to Abraham that everything he touches is going to prosper, that he's going to be a blessing, that he has a heavenly home, that God's going to make a great nation out of him. So it doesn't really matter what Lot does. Very important for Christians. Sometimes we do the comparison thing, we do the connection thing, we do the I want first, I want mine. I'm not sure that's healthy. This conflict was only resolved because Abraham had the humility to say, you pick first. You before me. I do not believe that family conflicts are solved if somebody can't say, you before me. I do not believe that church conflicts can be solved if you can't say, you before me. And I understand that there's a whole exceptional, like somebody's getting run all over. I'm not telling you to be a big loser and a pushover and just let everybody walk all over you because you're a Christian, so you have to be a sad sack, and I just don't believe that. It's ridiculous. And Christians take it to the extreme. But a lot of times we're dealing with good people, or we're dealing with people that we love, and we're so interested in ourselves, we just cannot get over it. Abraham says, "Hey, you take it, and I'll take what you don't take." You know what's wild? Anybody guess where Abraham got? He got where he was. Now, for all Lot's thought about greed, Lot left, and Abraham stayed where he was. The Bible says Lot went down to the south country, pitched a tent toward Sodom, and Abraham remained or abode or resided or dwelt in the land of Canaan. So where is Abraham? Abraham's right back where he built the altar. He's at his place of worship. And he let Lot have the choice, and God took care of it. He ended up being right where he is. I mean, who thinks that Lot got the better end of the deal? Not me. Right? Not you. Conflict, Wayne Dyer says, conflict cannot survive without your participation. Without your participation. I realize I'm running out of time, so I'll just try to, speed it up. It says, if it be possible, as much as lies in you, live at peace with all men. I want to close with a very, very powerful story, okay? A man, he walks into a eating establishment and bar, and he says, free beers outside. Everybody jumps up, runs out the door. Bartender is furious. He says, how could you do that to me? You just took all of my customers. Why would you do that? And the man said, sorry, mister. I honestly didn't think that any of those men would be brave enough to fight a grizzly bear, let alone 3 of them. Okay, you got to take a minute. I think a lot of times we're fighting over stuff. We don't even know what's going on. People don't even know why their conflict is happening. Yeah, free beers, free grizzly beers. Yeah, okay, I just helped you there. If Vanjie was here, she would laugh in about 15 minutes, but we're going to, all right. Why are we fighting? Why are we fighting? I would say that if we take a page from Abraham's book, maybe it's because we do not value unity, or we do not have perspective, or we do not establish proper boundaries. Or finally, many of us are struggling because we do not have faith that God can make things right. And so we're never willing to defer. We're never willing to give. Look, God is our inheritance, and He will take care of us. And that's exactly how the story ends. Abraham's left alone. Lot took the best country, and God says, look around. This is all yours. And I gave it to you, and I will be with you. And with that, we'll close and go right to prayer. Thank you guys for for being here tonight, and hopefully this message will be a blessing to you guys. I think we got some stuff planned afterwards. I'd like to go right to prayer. And again, I talked about this last week. I'd really like to just